All right. I've touched on Venezuela before, uh, and I'm gonna do it again. And I'm gonna try to tell you how it connects with what is taking place in the United States, and how what we do. Well, not we. I'm sorry. I got to get away from this we thing, and that's what those of us who are on the right side of morality and ethics and honor should be doing. When we're talking about the people that are in positions of political positions, in positions of corporations, banks, financial institutions, um, uh, you call energy, whatever you want to call it, or media, or military industrial complex. Let's when we talking about that, let's talk about them in terms of what they are. They are criminals. They are oppressors. They are authoritarians. They are the violent radicals. Understand that everything in history that all of these groups have done on an international scale, all right, always affects the domestic public negatively. So when I use the word rape, murder, pillage, plundering, and all that, I'm talking in terms of economics, social inequalities, uh, ethnic inequalities, racial inequalities, in division of the of people, the mental instability that's created, the that so everything that we face, we can attribute to these criminals. When I say the Mercers, the DeVosses, and I call about and the Trumps, and I'm talking about the Jamie Dimons, and uh, I'm talking about the Rothschilds, the Fords, you name it. When you go to the Banana Republic, when you go to Kohl's, when you go to Walmart, when you go to Stop and Shop or Giant or Whole Foods, or when you go to your mobile, Exxon Mobil, when you go to your when you go to everything, your Burger King, your McDonald's, your Wendy's, uh, everything has to do with the sector, the criminal sector, the top tier, global, uh, global terrorists. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Nestle's. I'm talking about Hershey. I'm talking about all of them, every single one of them, throughout the entirety of the history of the United States, throughout the entirety of the history of Western Europe. That's what I'm talking about, the criminal and the criminal assholes who have been in power, who have brought in shadowy criminal figures like Elliot Abrams and what's his name? Crap, I can't think of his name. But these are the people that get into State Department. They get into the DOD. They get into the CIA and the NSA and British and MI6 and all and the French and the Italians and you name it. The Canadians, the Canadians are just as bad as those in the U.S., those in Western Europe. They're all bad. They're all bad guys. Every single one of them. There is not one single one of them who has been a good guy. There are no white hats. They're all deepest black abyss. It doesn't matter what they are personally. The fact that they can do and help to perpetrate the most venomous, vile evil throughout history should say something. Because they are directly responsible for the carnage, the death, the murders and rapes of millions. This whole new thing with the U.S. You got with Pompeo and Bolton, and then now they've brought in Elliot Abrams, the guy that was connected with the Iran-Contra affair. The guy that did, and he was actually found guilty on 2 counts, and yet this guy's an out-and-out criminal, and he perpetrated and helped to create mass murder and chaos and a civil war, and then helped to put in a mass murdering psychopath. This is the sort of crap I'm talking about. This is what the sort of crap that a lot of people like me talk about. Is that this continuum? This is the sort of thing that helped that made Hawaii into a first an oppressed, conquered and oppressed and a suppressed territory, then later on into a state, because the wealthy decided that the wealthy criminals and the politicians decided that they found Hawaii attractive for military purposes and also for the sheer beauty and the economic advantages. And economic meaning, we want to take what could make money, such as pineapples, bananas, and other stuff. The same reasons why down in South and Central America, you got you got papayas and all these other exotic stuff. They can make money off. The whole thing with Banana Republic, that was actually directly in connection with wars started and wars and other violent actions, so that they can get in control of bananas, because bananas was making a lot of money. And check it out. You'll find out. You can find videos talking about the history of where Banana Republic came from. So, and I've made videos on this before. Hawaii was taken over because of Dole, the company Dole, and let's not call it a company, the crime syndicate called Dole, and the ownership at the time of Dole decided that they wanted control of bananas and pineapples and other exotic commodities, so that they could make money. And they started out with using mercenaries to go cause to kill, rape, pillage, plunder, and generally cause chaos. Then they brought the U.S. into it when the Hawaiian government at the time, it was a queen, decided that she didn't like that, and that she didn't want invaders coming in killing, so that they can so that Dole could basically take away land and so that they could make money. Um so it was an interesting thing I saw on Kyle Kalinski's show about Ben Stein on Fox News, and Ben Stein's like, capitalism is a great thing. Well, it was capitalism that was directly responsible for what happened in Hawaii, for the countless deaths of Native Hawaiians, for the United States sending in the military to start an invasion that collapsed and basically destroyed Hawaii. Then later on, forced Hawaii into servitude, and then because the corporations decided, oh, Hawaii was so attractive that they and the military and as a military site was so attractive. So, but this is what happened to Hawaii. What happened in the Americas, especially North America. That is something that continuously happens, and for the domestic public, it's always, oh, it's the savages. It's these savages. It's these others that started it. They were the ones being unfair. They were the ones that started the violence. They were the ones that they're always in the wrong. And Venezuela is just a modern example of what's taking place. Sanctions is a war. It's a violent war against other people and other countries. Sanctions directly are responsible for the grocery stores being empty in Venezuela. Sanctions are directly responsible for the violence that's happening in Venezuela. And sanctions are something that the capitalists, the ones that already have the money, that already have the infrastructure, and infrastructure meaning the media and the think tanks and all this other bullshit to vilify others for the raping and taking and pillaging and plundering of other countries and other people's resources. Fists up, people. We got to stop talking. We got to start taking action. And understand something. It's not your average Americans. It's not even mostly your middle class, and it's not even the upper middle class. No. It's your Wells Fargo's. It's your Doles. It's your Chiquita bananas. It's your P&G. It's your Dow. Your Dows. Your Exxon Mobil's. Your the big the big factory farmers. It's your Lay's potatoes. It's your General Mills. It's your it's your it's your Tyco. It's Tyco. It's your Nestle's, it's all these. It's your Bank of Americas. It's Wall Street. It's your politicians. All these criminal elements, and it's the people working behind the scenes in official positions. Oh, Henry Kissinger. That was a monstrous criminal asshole that I couldn't remember. And your Elliot Abramses, your Robert Muellers, your Mike Pompeos. It's all these, and directly your media figures. Everybody on Fox. Every single one of them. Every single one of your MSNBCs, your ABCs, your NBCs, your CBSs. It's every single one of them in your well, not every single, lesser degree with your PBSs, your NPRs. It's your universal. It's your every single one of the ones from Hollywood. Every single one of them. You know, with a few exceptions, like the guy that did Fahrenheit 9/11 and those. Mike something. He's been doing this sort of stuff for quite some time. Everybody knows. I think a lot of people know what I'm talking about. It's it's your the guy that started the World Wrestling Federation and started the wrestling thing on TV. You know, all these people are your criminals. Your Soros, he's a criminal. Your Bill Gates, he's a criminal. The guy from Apple who died, he's a criminal. And the ones that were running Apple now are criminals. The ones in Google, criminals. Facebook, criminals. There are no good guys. There are no white hats. Whether they consciously choose or not, but what they back, what they do, makes them criminals. Because it affects actual lives. Because it actually kills people. It actually starves people. It actually causes the inequalities we're finding here in the United States, and what's happening in South Korea, what's happening in the UK, what's happening in France, what's happening all over the Western world, what's happening in Japan, and in India, Turkey, everywhere. And the Chinese play the same thing. The Russians play the same thing. It's because all of them who sit in the upper stratospheres of power, who have control of militaries and intelligence services, who bring in those bootlickers who want to be like the top tier criminals of legitimacy, they're the ones. They're all bad. There are no white hats. The FBI has been a domestic and foreign international terrorist organization since founding. CIA, the same thing. MI6, the same thing. MI5, whatever the fuck you want to call it. They're all bad. There are no white hats. They're all black hats of the deepest black midnight black there is. There is no good guys. They're all bad. Whether you're a woman or a man, they're all bad. And there are only. It is now just only starting that there are a few true ones who are trying to be white hats, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, uh, those types. There aren't. However, there, uh, out of the hundreds and hundreds, they make up less than what you could place in both hands, count on both hands. And these are the sort of things that are happening everywhere. In the UK, Jeremy Corbyn, and they can count probably less the same amount. And that indicates that people are starting to wake up. People are starting to see the truth. Or at least they're getting a fuzzy picture. But let's nail it down. The ones that are causing all the wars, the ones that are causing all the inequalities, the ones that are causing all the instabilities and inequities are your capitalists. And they're not something that's new. The nobility and the monarchy, those were capitalists. Those were dictatorial oppressors and suppressors. And everybody that works under in the system, they are part and parcel. And the ones that get legitimacy to have the legitimate business. And I'm not talking about small business. I'm not even talking about the medium size business. I'm talking about the heavy hitters. Those are your elite criminals with legitimacy. The whole thing that like you got they talk about all these criminal organizations that do drug trafficking and so on and so forth. You know what the issue is there? Is that it's actually your Bayers and your and all these big legitimate pharmaceutical quote unquote companies. They're the actual drug traffickers. You know what the problem is that they have others who are trying to do it, and they don't have legitimacy. So therefore, they are the criminals. When you have Purdue Pharma, who's actually caused more harm with their opioid problems, but that's the whole thing. I talked about it before. The opium wars in China for the control of Hong Kong. That was legit. That was a legitimate companies and legitimate business and legitimate companies and countries who were doing the drug trafficking. It wasn't some a criminal organization. It was it was the actual government and the actual businesses. So the whole war on drugs, it was because they didn't want anybody else who was not authorized by them to deal in drugs. Prostitution, another thing. A lot of the prostitution is done by the so-called legitimate businesses and countries. Sex trafficking, a lot of it is done by your legitimate companies and countries. Everything that is vile and criminal is being done by your legitimate sources, with a few that don't get a pass, don't get the to be legitimized. They're the ones doing it. Those unfortunate ones. No, not unfortunate. They're criminals, but the ones that don't have the fortune to have to be get the rubber stamp of legitimacy. And of course, they need those. They need to have those so they can run so that your news media can talk about them and hype them up. And never mind, they never mention the legitimate ones. That's the issue with media. Media has always been that. It's been always geared to, because it's those with the money, the legitimate ones doing all the crime, who fund the media or find those who they can pay to run these crap stuff. Fist up, people, and let's start doing something about it. Let's start being a little extreme about it too. Let's stop killing each other. Let's stop blaming each other for what the legitimate criminals are doing. Let's start going after the legitimate criminals. And we know who those are. It's your banks, your financial institutions, your mortgage companies, your Walmarts, your Chevys, your GMs, your Fords, your Chryslers, your BMWs, your Mercedes. It's your ExxonMobils. It's your Citgos. It's your Marathons. It's your Giants. Your the Amazon. It's your Google. It's all of Silicon Valley. It's your Harvards, your Princetons, your MITs. It's all the private institutions. And you know what? The other thing is a lot of these so-called non-profit organizations who collect billions of dollars from us, the suckers, who donate, they are part of the system. Yeah, so let's start going after the top level ones. Let's start actually going after the actual criminals. Let's start getting a little radical.